Hey there, students, and welcome to the presentation on imperialism and the Industrial Revolution and how this impacted these wonderful parts of the world that we're studying in 1182. And before you go off, hey, Sturdivant, you said this class is non-Western history. Well, in 1181, these cultures really evolved in isolation, without much interaction with Europe, but boy, that's not the case in 1182. There's lots of interaction with Europe, and the good news for you is, as you went through this reading, I imagine most of this stuff was pretty familiar to you. But we're going to tackle this subject from a uniquely non-Western perspective. But this presentation is all about understanding why and how imperialism was inspired and got motivated and got off the ground. So here's the essential question for this presentation. What inspired European imperialism? European imperialism and the impact thereof is one of the primary themes of this course. Imperialism was a natural outgrowth of succeeding events. Although there's not a sharp divide between when one phenomenon began and one ended, it's helpful to think of this period in European history as an overlapping evolution of powerful forces. Now, the first one would be the Age of Exploration. That's followed by the Enlightenment. Then the development of the theories of capitalism and the Industrial Revolution. And like I said, there's not a hard and fast rule as to when one ends and when one starts. They're lumped together, but this is a general evolution. When it comes to how one views imperialism, it's often dependent on where one's from. Those who are the product of Western civilization, like almost everyone in this class, may have a negative view of imperialism, but that view is probably far less militant, far less negative than someone from Asia or Africa or Latin America. Some Westerners may even look at imperialism with a sense of pride. A British person might long for the days of the British Empire, a time when Western power was unmatched anywhere in the world. Imperialism does involve trade-offs. The Industrial Revolution and imperialism brought the world unparalleled wealth at the macro level. Living standards improved dramatically, and world population soared as a result of this affluence. But as we're going to learn, the human cost of this affluence brought by imperialism was epic. This could be the working class in Europe, but also the multitudes who lived in colonies who slaved away under European masters. Oftentimes in the imperial era, indigenous people did realize improved standard of living. But at the same time, while they were doing a little better, wealthy European investors reveled in unparalleled affluence. Many in European colonies were horribly exploited. National identity for those living in Asia, Africa, and Latin America was often undermined. The cultures of indigenous people were destroyed. To prosper, an indigenous person frequently had to speak their oppressor's language, worship their oppressor's God, and turn their back on their native culture. Picture this. How would you feel if a foreign power took over and forced you to learn a new language and strongly encouraged you to accept a new faith? The first era I want to focus upon is the Age of Exploration, which we're going to assign to the 15th and 16th centuries. This was a time period which saw European nations venture out of the continent. I talked about the Portuguese, a unit back, and they explored the world, spread Christianity, obtained strategic ports, and secured incredible wealth. The success with which they did this led to solid European confidence in European superiority, a racism that will propel Europe in the centuries to come. The Age of European Enlightenment is frequently viewed as a period between roughly 1685 and 1815. This was a time of incredible enthusiasm in Europe as Europeans threw off the shackles of religious dogma and became convinced that science could solve the mysteries of the universe and inspire incredible innovation. Enlightened thinkers believed in this concept of natural law, and that governed not only the material universe, but human behavior as well. This drive would revolutionize not only science, but the arts, politics, and economics. The Enlightenment spawned the theory of capitalism. The prevailing economic theory at the start of the Enlightenment was mercantilism. Stated simply, mercantilism was protectionism. A nation should protect domestic producers through the use of taxes and trade barriers. Adam Smith was a Scottish economist who believed that such a system violated natural law. There's that word again. His 1776 book, The Wealth of Nations, is one of the most important books ever written. I like to call it the Capitalist Manifesto. The Communist Manifesto will come later, but I like to call Smith's work the Capitalist Manifesto just because I think it has a nice ring to it. Smith believed that government should do virtually nothing to impede economic activity, including regulating trade. Smith believed that unbridled competition led to general prosperity. He would be an unabashed proponent of modern institutions like NAFTA or the European Trade Union. Such institutions literally wipe out trade barriers between nations and encourage free trade. He believed in something called the invisible hand. The invisible hand was an objective referee that elevates the good and destroys the uncompetitive. This invisible hand, look at my invisible hand here. Ooh. Oh no. Ooh. It's the invisible hand of Adam Smith. The invisible hand was ultimately natural law at work in economics. And as Adam Smith believed, it was as powerful as gravity and just as reliable. And finally, there's the Industrial Revolution. We're going to peg this in the 18th and the 19th centuries. The Industrial Revolution was a time of exploding productivity and innovation. Quite simply, the Industrial Revolution did more to encourage imperialism than any other phenomena. The objective was clear: acquire colonies for their natural resources, which could be extracted and returned home to produce finished products. Then sell those finished products back to the multitudes in the colonies. To many who lived in these European colonies, this was nothing more than grand theft. Europeans were stealing valuable indigenous resources and undermining treasured cultures. This story continues.